The life and legacy of the commander of the faithfuls, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, the first man in Islam, the cousin of the Prophet, his son-in-law, the first defender and supporter of the Prophet. We will discuss his sacrifice and his contributions over 30 episodes. So please join me. I am your brother, Moustafa Qazwini. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Our praise and our gratitude and thanks due to Him. He is our Creator. He is our Sustainer. He is the Lord who sent prophets and messengers to teach us and guide us. May His peace and blessings be upon all those noble messengers who came down to us to live among the humanity and to guide, to serve, to teach, and to be patient. May His peace and blessings be upon the seal and the last of the messengers, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and upon his family members and a progeny and his righteous companions. And may the peace of the Lord surround you, my good friends, my brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So when the Prophet left Mecca under darkness and he headed towards Medina to the north, Imam Ali stayed behind in Mecca for 3 days, and he had to return the trusts, the amanat, the money that people left with the Prophet. And when his mission was concluded, he took the female family of the Prophet, the women. Those women were his mother, Fatima bint Asad, and his future wife, Fatima al-Zahra, the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Fatima bint al-Zubayr, the cousin of the Prophet, and Fatima bint Hamza alayhi salam, the uncle of the Prophet, which was also the cousin to the Prophet and Imam Ali. And they headed with 2 men towards Medina. Halfway through, in one of the villages or rest areas, a group of Quraysh chased them. They approached them. They threatened them. They intimidated women. But Imam Ali was always brave, always there, never hesitated to defend his integrity and the integrity of those who are with him. So there were some skirmishes taking place. As a result of that, one of those men who tried to attack was killed, and the rest, they ran away. And Imam Ali alayhi salam stayed in that village, and at midnight, him and the people who were with him, they stood for the prayers, for tahajjud, for supplication and communion with God. And this is where the Quran says in Surah Al-Imran, الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض. Those who rehearse the remembrance of God while they are standing, sitting, laying on their sides, and they reflect and ponder on God's creation. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. You did not create this universe, these stars, this cosmos system, this earth in vain. You have created them for a purpose. ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. Avert us the punishment of the hellfire. And after that, the Prophet was waiting. The Prophet, he promised that he will meet Ali before he goes to Medina. So he was counting the days and the nights where Ali and women, the Fawatim, would join him. There was a village outside the city of Medina. Those of you who have been to Medina, probably they have passed through this village, which is now part of the city of Medina. That village's name was Quba. So the Prophet stayed in Quba with a group, a tribe. And you know, Arabia was made of tribes. All these neighborhoods, all these suburbs and neighborhoods and villages and small towns and even cities were made of either one big tribe or several tribes. So the name of the tribe who was in Quba at that time were Bani Amr ibn Salim, Bani Amr ibn Auf. So the Prophet stayed there. And they kept telling him, Ya Rasulullah, let's build a house for you here. Let's build a mosque for you here. He said, no, I'm not staying here. I have to leave. The only thing I am doing is that I'm waiting for Ali. وَلَسْتُ مُسْتَوْطِنًا مَنْزِلًا. I would not live in a house. I would not take a house here حَتَّى يَقْدِمَ عَلَيَّ عَلِي. Until Ali would arrive and join me here. وَمَا أَسْرَعَهُ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ. He's coming soon. He will be coming soon. The Prophet could not stand this separation with Ali. So he was counting the hours for Ali to arrive. Soon after that, Ali arrived into Quba. And he met the Prophet. And the Prophet realized when he looked at his feet, he realized that they are cracked open because of the severity of the weather and the harsh conditions of the roads. It means that Ali, most of the time, he was walking when he traveled from Mecca to Medina because he had women with him and he had to lead the camels. So he had to walk. So the Prophet cried. He hugged Ali. After these separations, after this period of separation of a few days, now this is the reunion with his sweetheart, with Ali, with his right hand, with his first officer. So he embraced him. He kissed him and he cried. And then he said to Ali, Ali, remove all these bandages from your feet. I have the healing. I have the medicine for you. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam masaha yadayhi ala qadamay. He wiped his hand, his noble hand, on Ali's feet. And فَلَمْ يَشْكُهُمَا بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ أَبَدًا. From that day, Ali never suffered from any pain or any discomfort in his feet after the Prophet puts his noble hand on them. Then when Imam Ali alayhi salam arrived into Quba and he joined the Prophet there and they celebrated their reunion, and women also reached there safe after this tumultuous journey from Mecca to Medina, which was surrounded by danger. Surrounded by danger because Quraysh, they knew that they wanted to kill the Prophet, and the Prophet managed to get away. Not only that, even women who stayed behind, now they have joined the Prophet safe and sound with the help of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And of course, under the guidance and the protection of God. It was very hard for the Prophet to leave his birthplace. So he looked back at Mecca when he was leaving and he cried. فَدَمِعَتْ عَيْنَهُ. So God comforted him by saying, إِنَّ الَّذِي فَرَضَ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ لَرَادُّكَ إِلَى مَعَاتٍ. The Lord who descended the book upon you is going to bring you back to this city, to your birthplace, to your home, to your town, with victory and triumph. And this is what happened during the conquest of Mecca. Then the Prophet moved to another location before he entered the city of Medina. And this time, this location belonged to the people of Bani Salim. Bani Salim, the first group was Bani Amr ibn Auf. This group are Bani Salim ibn Auf. Apparently they're cousins, and there were some rivalries between them. And the Prophet there, he planned a mosque, to build a mosque for them. And he pointed the direction to the Qibla, to Mecca, from there. And they started building the mosque, and that mosque was called Masjid Quba. If you happen to go to the glorious city of Medina, you must go to Masjid Quba. This is the very first mosque that had been established in Islam. أول مسجد بني في الإسلام, by the Prophet. The engineer, the architect was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he stayed there, and he did 2 units of prayers in that mosque, which was still in the process of being made, and he gave 2 short sermons, and he moved to Medina while Imam Ali alayhi salam and the group of women were with him. وَعَلِيٌّ لَا يُفَارِقُهُ يَمْشِي بِمَشِّهِ. Ali was like a shadow to the Prophet. He walked with the Prophet step by step until they arrived Medina. Where did they arrive? What hotel they stayed at? That place was the house of a righteous man. He was not rich. He was very humble. Actually, he was poor. He had a house which was made of 1 room, the ground floor and first floor. 1 room is in the ground floor, the other was in the first floor. And that house was the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh, one of the best companions of the Prophet. You know, this man is buried in Istanbul. And I have been to his shrine, his grave, so many times. And the Turkish people, they love him, they adore him, because he's the greatest companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They call him Ayyub Sultan. If you happen to go to Turkey and Istanbul, you must go and pay tribute to this great companion, because he hosted the Prophet in his house, while his house was very small. In the first floor, a room, the Prophet stayed there. And then soon after, the Prophet started to build homes. First, the mosque in the center of the city. And then, with this mosque, he started building homes for himself, for Imam Ali alayhi salam, and for others. Slowly, slowly, people started building their homes around the mosque. He created that beautiful, new emerging community of Medina. So for a few days he stayed at Abu Ayyub's residence, but after that the Prophet himself was building the mosque with the help of the companions, with the help of his family members. When you build the mosque yourself, it has a special meaning. You develop a sense of belonging, a sense of commitment. a sense of sacrifice. When you build it brick by brick. And this is exactly what the Prophet did with his mosque, Masjidun Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. And there were homes. The house of the Prophet was inside the masjid. And the house where Ali alayhi salam married Fatima later was inside the masjid. And then after that, the first thing the Prophet did when he arrived in Medina, he did mu'akhat, fraternity, brotherhood, establishing these bonds of unity and harmony and mutuality among the Muhajirin and the Ansar. History tells us that there were twice the Prophet did mu'akhat, fraternity. Twice. One in Mecca, between the companions who were in Mecca at that time. But later on, when he came to Medina, that was the second round of mu'akhat, to bring people together. Each one with his own match, each one with his own equal. For instance, the Prophet ﷺ, he looked at people's characters. So if they matched each other, they will establish this bond between them. فَآخَى بَيْنَ أَبِي بَكْرٍ وَعُمَرٍ. He made Abu Bakr, Umar, and Umar brothers, spiritual brothers. وَآخَى بَيْنَ عُثْمَانَ بْنَ عَفَّانَ وَعَبْدُ الرَّحْمَنِ بْنْ عَوْفٍ. Although there is a blood relationship between them, between those two, the Prophet made them also brothers. And he brought, different people, but they matched each other. They had compatibilities in their characters and their traits, and he linked them to each other so they would support each other. وَآخَى بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ عَلِيِّ بْنِ أَبِي طَالِبٍ. The Prophet left Ali for the last. So some people, they felt, sad that Ali is left alone. He has no brother. Probably the Prophet forgot about him. Probably the Prophet did not find a match for him. So they came to the Prophet, trying to reminding him, "Oh, Ya Rasulullah, don't forget, Ali is there alone." The Prophet says, "Yes, hold on. Until he finished his companions, they were linked to each other, they became brothers. Then he said, "I left Ali for myself. وَإِنَّهُ بمنزلة هارون من موسى لكنه لا نبي بعدي." Ali is my brother and my companion, and also my successor. He represents to me what Aaron represented to Moses, with one exception. Aaron was a prophet, Ali is not a prophet, because there is no prophet after me. I am the seal of the messengers. So Ali became the brother of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he became his brother, spiritual brother, and he was his biological first cousin, and he was his son-in-law, and he was his first officer and first defender. And after the departure of the Prophet, he was the first successor to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. And he said to him, وَأَنْتَ أَخِي وَوَارِثِي. You are my brother and my inheritor. So Imam Ali said to him, "Ya Rasulullah, what would I inherit from you?" So the Prophet said, مَا وَرَثَ الْأَنْبِيَاءُ مِنْ قَبْلِي. Whatever the prophets before me, they inherited from their predecessors. كِتَابَ رَبِّهِمْ. What was these items? Number one, the book of the revelation of God. وَسُنَّةَ نَبِيِّهِمْ. and the tradition of their prophets. وَأَنْتَ مَعِي فِي قَصْرِي فِي الْجَنَّةِ. And you will be in my palace in paradise with me. No separation between these two leaders, these two individuals, in this life and in the hereafter. They go with each other. So Ali was with the Prophet in this life all the time, and according to the Prophet himself, he's going to be with him in his not just neighborhood, but his palace in paradise. So this is the story of the arrival into Medina. And the Prophet started the nation building. After building his mosque and building the homes for himself and for his community and for his family, and when he created this sense of brotherhood and bonding to strengthen, to internally strengthen his community, because they need to stand with each other, they need to help each other, they need to sacrifice for each other, then he started the nation building. But then, of course, Quraysh would not just stand and watch and see the progress in Medina, see their enemy, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, consolidates his position and his strength in Medina. So they decided to attack the Prophet in his new home, and this is what we're going to hear next time, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.